Dominic, you want to start us off?
Oh, sure. All right, are we good to go?
We are good to go.
All right. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to Art and Meditation, which is a collaboration between the Houston Museum of African American Culture and the Hines Center for Spirituality. I just thank everybody who is currently tuning in. This is our second discussion on art and meditation. And also, I really want to send salutations from Seaver Suber, who we're just trying to get well right now. She's quarantining in her own right. So she asked me to take over this, and I'm here. And I have a guest with me as well, who will be actually talking about her artwork and her upcoming exhibition at the Houston Museum of African American Culture inside of the Burt Long Jr. Gallery, Melissa Aytenfisu. And so as time moves forward, I hope you guys enjoy everything. And thank you, Danielle, for having us on again. And I hope you guys enjoy this program that we're putting together for you in discussion, okay? Thank you guys so much, and hope you guys enjoy.
Thanks, Dom. I'm so excited to be with you all today, and just really grateful for the ability to invest in ourselves through opportunities like this. And I'm so grateful for the HMAC, which is an organization that continues to communicate the value of African American culture, the genius of African American culture, and the legacy of African American culture. And just grateful to be a part of what you guys are doing as you nourish and love on the world, and grateful to be a part of what you're doing as we're all seeking to virtually make sure that people feel loved and held and valued. So thank you guys for inviting us into your efforts and for the work that you guys continue to do, not just in our city, but nationwide. I mean, we know that because of the digital access that we have more opportunities to, share our work. And so I know that you guys' mission is, it's transcending the boundaries of Houston's geography, and it's going all over the country and all over the world. So I appreciate y'all for loving on us like that. And I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So there is this form of meditation called contemplation. And contemplation is simply a different way to become familiar with whatever the source of higher intelligence you call on. If that source of higher intelligence for you is ancestor, if that source is for you God or Allah or spirit or your highest self, if it is intuition, if it is just good, if it is just accessing good inside of you, however you want to reach out to that presence and that source, we're going to experience a meditative practice that gives us a heightened awareness and an ability to develop a conversation with that higher source. And again, however you call on that source, whatever name you use to call on that source, I want to encourage you just to welcome that name into your awareness and into your space. We know that that source is ever present, but sometimes our awareness of that presence is something that we need to wake up and initiate. And so I want to welcome you to engage whoever your source is, or however you receive wisdom, love, strength, security, however you call on the higher source of intelligence that you pull from. I want you to welcome that source right now. And we're going to engage in a practice called the Lectio Divina, which is a contemplative practice. And the Lectio Divina is Latin for divine reading. It's a Latin word that really speaks to how when we look at different things, things like a poem, things like scriptures, things like a sacred text, a picture, a painting, oftentimes we tend to talk about what we read or talk about what we see and we make observations. Rarely do we allow that work of art and the living spirit of that artwork to inform us about ourselves. And so this is an opportunity for us to allow the medium of visual art to truly be a medium that mediates between us and the source of intelligence, the source of love that we're calling on. And this is really reflective of ancient Christianity. I'm talking about the old stuff that people kind of used to get murdered, for, you know what I mean? The kind of spiritual practice of Christianity that made governments angry because, the true practice of connecting with a God that messed up, taxes for people, you know what I'm saying? And so what they would have to do is they would have to pass along messages from Christian scriptures in the form of images. And they developed a practice for understanding the meaning and understanding the inspirational messages, understanding the encouragement of these pictures through Lectio Divina. So we are engaging in a centuries old way of revolutionary spiritual practice that continues even today. And so again, it's not the kind of fast food Christianity that we kind of see today, you know what I mean, with all of the ways to quickly access a religion. This Lectio Divina really was a tool used by folks who were experiencing persecution because of their radical faith. And so we join in the revolutionary learning tool with those folks by engaging in Lectio Divina. So before we get into that, though, I would love for us to hear from the visual artist who has allowed the genius, the divine genius, to blow through her to bring us the image that we're going to be allowing to divinely read us today. So Dom, will you tell us more about the image and introduce us to our artist?
Okay. I'm with this artist, Melissa Aytenfisu. She's very, she's been in the Houston art scenes for a very long time. And I first saw her work at Citywide African American Artist Exhibition by 5A, and also the MFA. That's usually at the University Museum at TSU. And I actually got to really meet her as I was asked to curate a show at the Community Artists Collective called Women's Work. And I've been in love with her work ever since. But I think that from the work that I saw and for the work that she'll be presenting in her upcoming exhibition at the Museum of African American Culture, we're trying to have her opening on the 28th, but I can't give you a definite date just due because all of the the slow planning that's going on with COVID. But her work is beautiful, and she's a beautiful person, and I'll let her talk a little bit in depth about her own art form. Okay, I introduce to you Miss Melissa Aytenfisu.
Thank you. So this piece here, it's very personal. I guess my intention, anybody listening or looking, the intention would be home. Even though it's titled Homeless, the idea is to think about your sense of home. So I ride my bike to and from work. I live here in Third Ward, Houston, and I work in the museum district. So I ride my bike, and I pass a lot of homeless people on my bike ride. And it's always been very soft in my heart, the homelessness and how we can change it and make it better as a society. And I've always wanted to capture it in my artwork in just a delicate way. So riding my bike home along this bench I often see, one day I came across the bench and it was, I mean, often there's homeless people, but one day it was empty and there was just a pillow and a blanket left behind by somebody who must have been sleeping there. And I just immediately just felt it in my heart to get off my bike and take a picture, because I knew I was going to make some artwork out of it. I could feel it in my heart. So I went home and I had the image just playing in my mind. And then a few days later, I rode my bike along the same path and I came across a man sleeping on that same bench. So now I had the two images, and it just came to me to kind of put them together and think about how somebody can go from living in a home to homeless, and then from homeless maybe back to living in a home again. And on a personal note for everybody, think of your own sense of home and how secure it is, or maybe how insecure it is. So that was actually personal for me too. I had gone through an experience in Houston 2 years ago where I became homeless for about a week with my two children. And so ever since then, homelessness has been even more personal to me. And now I'm thankful, I'm lucky, I'm blessed to have a lot of security in where I live. And that's for me something I always want to have going forward for me and my children. And everyone, I think, wants that security of home, a place where you can be at peace. So in this image, there's a lot of elements of printmaking. So I collect objects from around the neighborhood. And in this particular one, you can see footprints of somebody walking past the homeless person. So again, on one of my trips out in the neighborhood with my kids, I came across a pair of shoes at United Station Park, and I picked them up and I brought them home, an old discarded pair of used shoes, and they happened to be the same size that I wear, size 10. So I looked at the pattern and shape on the bottom and what they look like, and I did a few practice prints, and then I put it on my artwork to talk about like how often we walk past homeless people, and how we feel when we do, and maybe how that person feels. So that's the overarching idea. I mean, there's a lot of minor nuances within the artwork, but that's the big picture of how this artwork came to be.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your intentions so well. What we're going to do now is, now that we understand Melissa's intentions and we understand the story behind her heart as she created, I want us to engage in divine reading. And if you hear some whispers, that's my little 4-year-old and her daddy conspiring to do something. So they've gone on to do it. So there are 5 steps in this process. And what I want us to do first is begin by breathing. Just breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the mouth. Sigh it out. Breathe in through the nose one more time. And let's just sigh it out one more time. Taking in all the gratitude of being able to breathe in and out. Breathe in through the nose. Final sigh it out one last time. And what I want you to do is just allow your eye to slowly and carefully just make its way around this painting. Just allow your eye to just slowly make your way around. Continuing to breathe. I want you to allow your eye to focus on the details that stand out to you. Just focus. And that presence that you welcomed earlier, that divine source that you call on, consider that source a companion for you as you just make your way around, noticing what you notice. Just having a loving conversation between you, your source, and this piece. The word meditate in Sanskrit is dhyani, and it means to become familiar with. And that's all we're doing, is just becoming familiar with this piece. So as you meditate, notice where your eye is drawn to. Allow your eye to just be drawn to that space. What do you notice about it? What does it say to you? What do you like? What do you sense? What do you see? Continuing to breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Holding a soft gaze on the image, allowing the image to reveal itself to you. And finally, is there any action that you feel compelled or inspired to take by what you notice? Is there any thought, any feeling, and any next step that you feel compelled to take as you notice what you notice? Taking a few more rounds of that deep breathing. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose. When you're ready, you can begin to breathe more normally. And I'll take you through the steps one more time. You're simply allowing your eye to wander around the piece, inviting a dialogue between you and the piece and the source of divine intelligence that you recognize and are aware of. And with that presence, beginning to think about where your eye continues to go and what that means to you, what that area, what that image, what that symbolism is, and what you're feeling drawn to or compelled to deeply explore because of it. And then lastly, what action are you inspired to take? Anybody who's on right now want to share anything that they're noticing?
I just drawn to the car with in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I realized it was in the face. I didn't see that before. It's like I just noticed all of the chaos and the lighting and how it left it be. Like I don't know how to even sleep in those situations. It's just so busy. So yeah, it's really it's an awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really kept going back to these little tiny feet in the left-hand corner of the man that's sleeping on the bench. Just the vulnerability of bare feet juxtaposed with this very public space, you know, and just aware of how dire a situation has to be for you to be asleep barefoot on a bench in a public space, right? And how we often look at homelessness and we look at the homeless, right? And we look at like we dehumanize it as a city issue. But then when you look at those bare feet and you look down at your own bare feet, because most of us have decided to just abandon shoes since we're in the house. Wow, who needs shoes in the house? And so it's like you're just keenly aware of everything that you have to be grateful for. For me, like I'm barefoot in a space where it's normal and natural to be barefoot. This person is barefoot in a public space, you know, just keenly aware of the vulnerability and the humanity of this image. Anybody else? Melissa, you can participate. You know, you don't have to be quiet just because it's your piece.
I know. It's fascinating hearing what other people's eye is drawn to, you know.
I would like to say something.
Yeah.
When I look at this piece, like you said, the meaning behind meditation is to become familiar with. But, homeless people really feel as if they're invisible. This kind of allow us to become aware of just not our surrounding things as she is, taking these found objects and using them as prints. But she is also becoming aware of the people that we kind of neglect and society have neglected. And, one beautiful thing about the feet reference that you said is that, shoes is like a prime commodity for the homeless, like shoes and socks. So, even the footprint is like a remnant of the materialistic things that we take for granted on an everyday basis. Like, who knew having shoes for somebody in the United States of America would be a problem? And that kind of speaks volumes to that, because I feel like not only is he vulnerable as in himself, but he's physically vulnerable. He is vulnerable to mobility. He's vulnerable to disease. He's vulnerable to so many things just with that lack of shoes. So, it make me, I guess you would say, be aware of myself and be aware of my own privilege. And I don't privilege as in, that I'm rich or anything, but, privilege through my own grace and through my own, right of the things that I have. And I think this piece is extremely strong.
Yeah.
I think, like, for me, that what I see is, when a lot of people see homeless on the street, there is an us versus them mentality. People who are homeless versus people who are not. And a lot of people walk past homeless every day. And so, like, without even like thinking about them, about their lives, about what they're vulnerable to. And in this piece, it's like you see the us versus them. You see the homeless, and then you see the car. And homeless people don't own cars. And it's like the car is acting like eyes watching the homeless person and not helping the homeless person. It's just watching. And so, like, that's what I'm seeing as well as, like the vulnerable feet. I also really like the geometry in this piece. I think that it adds a really deeper layer to what we're seeing, because a lot of people like look at this piece and think, okay, like we see a homeless person laying down, but then it's like the geometry acts as like another layer, as if there's like more behind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out, because I took a few photos and I was playing around with them, with specifically the geometry. And when I laid them like this, it was just like it clicked. And I was like, this is exactly how it has to be. I had them at one point in the same direction, you know, I had them one above the other, but then when I put them like this, it just, and so that's the process, you know, as an artist, there's a process to create a composition. And for me, it was moving the actual images around. I printed them off and I was playing with them. And then this exact image of them coming together at the bottom, almost making a triangle, like almost what's the word, mirror image. That, yeah, you're absolutely right. And you're absolutely right about the car as well. I didn't even realize till I was starting to draw it that it was a Mercedes. How can you have like extreme wealth next to extreme poverty, just side by side on a sunny day? But,
and that's what we see all the time, like walking through downtown Houston.
Yeah.
And
So
it's really a position, like a idea of juxtapositions. You know, even, you know, we're talking about geometry, but really it's symmetry. Like the same thing in a different place. So it kind of communicates this is not just a problem in one place, but a problem in many places. You know, even the triangle, you know, is always used to, you know, to flow the eye, even during the Baroque period, with painters like Peter Rubens, who continuously used triangle formats to communicate, you know, this idea of movement, or even it has a spiritual reference too, you know, with the Trinity. You know, that's the reason why the triangle was used to kind of invoke this power of three. So I think even with, you know, the homeless, and then with, you know, the three corners that you're seeing, and it just brings your eye to that Mercedes Benz, and even, you know, the half measure of the Mercedes Benz. The Mercedes Benz isn't all the way drawn out. It's like half of it. Like it's like, although, you know, it's you may have, it seems like something is missing, right? Although you may have, you know, financial wealth, do you have spiritual wealth?
So good. So good. Any final thoughts about this piece before we transition into our second Lectio Divina opportunity? So beautiful. And this I keep going to this pillow over here too. Like this, you know, this, you know, international symbol of comfort, you know, in this very uncomfortable space, you know. And just what it really inspires me to do is just do everything I can within my means and my power to, you know, be a bridge, you know, to be, if I can't give anything in the moment, because you know how some people are like, you got something on you? It's like, I don't have any cash on me, but I can be kind about it. I can look this person in the eye. A lot of times when we do see folks who are, I call them our transitioning neighbors, because they're always in transition. When we see our transitioning neighbors, because they are our neighbors, you know, sometimes folks do appreciate being acknowledged and having eye contact made. So if you can't give anything, you can give some humanity, you know. And I found that, you know, in the last two spaces that I've taken care of, you know, I've been a curator in that old sense of curare, you know what I mean, to care for. So the last few spaces that I've curated from an executive standpoint, we both spaces had transient neighbors, and we really worked together. You know, I wouldn't really mess with them, and they would watch my place. You know what I'm saying? And so, actually, the last three places, because one was in Third Ward on Almeida and Wheeler. One was in Third Ward on Fannin, right by Fiesta. So that's Wheeler and San Jacinto. And then another place, we're downtown on Fannin and Prairie. And all those spaces, I have relationships with the folks, with the transient neighbors. And they would always be like, okay, y'all all right? You good? And even downtown, they call me Good Morning America, because they know that I've been on TV. So they're always like, hey, good morning, America. And the general vibe is, we're going to compassionately work together to try and figure out what it looks like for us to be in the space as peacefully as we can, you know. So good. But I mean, Melissa, thank you so much, because I'm really aware, like you were saying, Dom, I'm really aware of our privilege, and I'm gonna go ahead and call it privilege. We may not be as privileged as some other people in this country, but we are definitely privileged to be sitting in AC, you know, with refrigerators stocked and closets full. We are privileged. Thank you. Melissa, you want to share anything before we move on?
No, I'm just really touched to hear everybody's thoughts and, you know, creating the work. It gives me shivers to think of like these conversations that we're having now, you know, and it was very meditative to create it. You know, it was a very quiet space and just working slowly. So now being able to share it with everybody and talk about it and raise awareness, that was exactly my dream and my hope. So I'm thankful to be here.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, let's look at the second piece that our wonderful curators have chosen for us. Dom, would you tell us about this piece?
Okay. This is a piece by Clementine Hunter. This piece is untitled, but it is a part of a series called The Baptism. You know, as researching her, we wanted to show this piece because this would be a part of the exhibition that we'll be having at the museum with the uncertain date of June 21st, called Souls of Black Folks, coined out of from W.E.B. Du Bois' book, and him and his journeys to the South through a grant for him to kind of explore the poverty of the South right after the New Deal. And he saw some things, and, you know, he saw major poverty. This is what the exhibition is going to talk about, is that trade-off in the relationship between the North Black folk and the South Black folk. And, you know, how we always say we're country cousins, you know, through, you know, the UGK and the Black Star albums, even, you know, that goes into the narrative of, you know, all of us are cousins when it comes down the road, especially if you know about the Black migration. So, but Clementine Hunter herself, she actually was born in 1886, and with her being born in a very small community right outside of Nacogdoches, she ended up working on one of the largest slave plantations in Louisiana, in Natchitoches, called the Melrose Plantation. And so when, with me also being from that area, because I'm Natchitoches is just the sister town of Nacogdoches, which, if you know where Nacogdoches is, it's right over state lines. All of that area is called the Arklatex. And when I look at this image, it reminds me of the old churches that still exist in the backwoods. You know, churches that you know, is just created on blocks, and, you know, still have a baptism pond, because we don't even see that in churches no more. But if you go back to the country, if you go back to these very rural areas, you'll know these historic Black churches by what's displayed for an example in this image. And, you know, I love spiritual images like this because it kind of dives into the things she saw as actually being working on a plantation. Even after the Emancipation Proclamation, she basically worked on a plantation until she was in her 40s. And then that's when she started painting and becoming more and more evident with the images that she would create. And she actually lived to 102 years old in spite of her hard life. And so, you know, that tells you the strength of our ancestors and the things that they can persevere through and still live a long and prosperous life far after she, you know, was basically slaving away on these plantations. So when we think about, you know, we think about, you know, slavery was over during the Emancipation Proclamation, you know, especially us here in Texas, our ancestors were freed in 1865, 2.5 years after the actual Emancipation Proclamation was made. And so when we, you know, kind of in retrospect look at how, you know, we are here, how did we get here? We got here from the strength of our ancestors. And Clementine is one of those women who was able to find her happiness and really find herself within art. And as you can see, like, she's a complete folk artist. She's untrained, and they allowed her to be that. And, you know, Clementine Hunter is like one of these artists who is now just getting her roses. Like she created a very large body of work, and her house is actually still standing in Natchitoches, Louisiana. So, you know, just the beauty of like how long she persevered, and even through that lengthy perseverance, that she was still able to find her happiness. And I think that's a beautiful thing about Clementine Hunter.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. As you shared her story and the time period of her work, the work began to take on a new life. I just love how the story enriches the details.
You know, but you know, that's the fun of folk painters, right? Folk painters is these people who, you know, are very self-taught, and a lot of them, because you can't forget about, you know, really one state over, you know, you have the G-Spin sisters, you know, like who was also folk artists, except for being painters, they made quilts. And about how these, like, even the people who we thought, because all of our grandmothers and great grandmothers as African Americans made quilts. And so when we think about that as high art, you know, there were geniuses, but to us, you know, we saw talent so much, it was kind of this everyday thing for us, you know. So I think Clementine speak volumes on that. That she speak volumes on, you know, the beautiful expression that we see on an everyday basis while going to church, while, you know, being around family, just singing around, like all of those things are very beautiful connotations of our history. And I think that piece is kind of sum up her whole career. I loved learning about her. I was so surprised, you know, about how close she was to me where I was raised, because I was actually raised, my grandfather was a sharecropper, and, you know, we lived that way all the way until I moved out of East Texas. So, you know, and I know the struggle, and when I see images like that, it just really bring me back to home.
Beautiful. Well, let's all go home for a second then. Everybody start those deep breaths that we engaged before, breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the nose. When you breathe in and out through your nose like that, you engage your vagus nerve, which is a nerve that connects to every single organ and system you have in your body. So every time you breathe in and breathe out through your nose, you engage what's called parasympathetic innervation. And that's a fancy word for using your breath to tell your body you can rest and digest, that you're okay. So let's do some more of that deep breathing. And then let's move through the steps of Lectio Divina. Softly gazing at this painting, just find a space that you keep going back to, you know, engaging the presence of your divine source and beginning that conversation. Just let your eye wander over the painting. And if your eye keeps going back to the same space, keeps lingering over the same space, just allow it. Become familiar with that space. What does that space mean to you? What is that part of the painting? What part of the story are you in? What part of your story does the painting find you in? How can you connect your story with Clementine's story? How is your immediate environment spanning the time space continuum to connect with this moment in history? What does that mean to you? What does it mean for you? Contemplate. What does that mean for you? And finally, what action are you inspired to take? What is this meaning that you're experiencing make you want to do? A couple of more rounds of breathing. As we get more and more familiar with the spaces that our eyes really like, we get more and more familiar with what the divine is communicating to us, maybe even about us. When you're ready, you can resume a normal breathing pattern. I know for me, I really like the all the colors. My eye keeps going over to this pink that's right around the pond, right where this person is being baptized, and it looks like they're celebrating. And I don't know, man. I think what I just keep coming back to over and over is like what's common to you is like high art in the world sometimes. You know, what's common to you is high art. And you only experience that high art if you value and esteem yourself. You know, like gumbo is high art, man. You know what I'm saying? Like these country churches that were set in these beautiful, you know, pastures, you know, with this music and the shouting and the dancing and the outfits, like that's a Vogue centerfold spread. You know what I'm saying? Like the colors, the ingenuity, the harmonies, the symmetry. Like Anna Wintour wishes. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what I hear is like value and esteem of my own culture that I always say, because I don't know my African roots, I don't have a culture. And that is incorrect. You know? So I'm inspired to like value my what is common to me is how I'm about to go make me some kush kush, man. Shoot. Y'all know what kush kush is? It's cornbread, sugar, and a little bit of warm milk called kush kush. It's an old Louisiana snack. Anybody else want to share what the divine reading read in them?
So that was much easier to do this meditative process with someone else's artwork than my own. I was looking at my own, I was just remembering how I made this or how, you know, but now looking at her artwork, I can actually feel free to be drawn into the story and the colors, like you said. So a couple of things. One, like you were drawn to the colors of pink. I think this artist, Clementine, did an amazing job of contrasting light and dark colors throughout her painting. There's dark spots right in the center and right along that beautiful deep blue in the edge of the light. And then those bright outfits, the whites, the pinks, the yellows. So she did a beautiful job contrasting the colors. And the second thing is the church. The angle of the church, angled back, angled up. It almost makes you think of someone like receiving energy, receiving love. But just I love that diagonal that it's on a slight angle. And like, you know, normally you would just see it flat and straight, but that angle that it's on contrasted with, again, we see that triangularism and the idea of the Trinity and the angle coming down of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people standing at an angle coming downward. Those lines and angles are beautiful, and that she could create this in 19 or 18, whatever, is like, it speaks to her ingenuity, it speaks to her genius and genetics and her own just born talent that came, you know, without education, just that folk natural talent that was in her, and it's beautiful.
Gorgeous. Anybody else?
Well, I can say this. If you notice, there is only two men in the image, which is this is a church predominantly of women, and all of the spiritual counselors are women. You know, but that goes into the history of the church, right? You know, there is, and let me just say, you know, this ain't to judge or anything, but you know, the women, Black women, are the griot of Black culture. You know, and when we go into churches, they're predominant. If you go into museums, they're the dominant people. Like it's just that they are the griot. And even before that time, you know, when mushroom colonies were a thing in Louisiana, those was led by women as well. So, you know, that deep tradition of women in the church, I think is a beautiful notion that she's displaying in this painting.
Beautiful. That's a great observation. I didn't even notice that. And I mean, isn't it so true now? If all the women stop going to church, even now, Lord have mercy, they will be the nastiest little churches, the dirtiest churches. Not that that's the only reason why women are valuable, but that's just that would be a noticeable change. So we walk in and we're like, oh no, the house of the Lord. We got to do better than this. I think it's so interesting. I complain about so many things, and you know, I'm a typically very happy, grateful person. I still have my own complaints. This lady had a hard life, y'all. Like, she didn't get weekends off. You know what I'm saying? And to be able to splash these pinks and yellows and greens, you know, you can tell she really enjoyed creating this. You know, she really enjoyed herself. She put her initials in that bottom left corner, like, you know, this is me, this is mine, you know? Again, the action I'm inspired to take is if a woman who endured days as a slave can find time to paint, surely I can find time, make time for what my role as a griot for my culture is, you know, and enjoy myself at the same time.
And may I say, like, both of the pieces kind of brings this like this narrative of, you know, again, the privilege aspect, you know, of us looking at as life for what it is and life of what it could be. You know, like both of them kind of plays with your idea of your own privilege, and you know, allow you to kind of empathize people who didn't necessarily have the life that you had. And I think that's kind of a beautiful correlation between the two that was completely unintentional. But I think both of the pieces have like this awesome relationship between one another.
Love it. So good. Well, as you're listening, I want you to just be thoughtful about what this piece communicates to you about you. Because we know that about art, right? The things that we like about what we see are often reflections of ourselves. So when you notice something about an art, a work of art, a song, anything you notice is usually a reflection of what's already in you, what's being developed in you, what's yearning to come out. So any kind of art enjoyment is really a way for us to not just enjoy the story and the work of another artist, but also to become more familiar with what's going on within. So I appreciate you guys for going on that journey with us and encourage you to continue that journey. And if you want the 5 steps of Lectio Divina again, it's very simple. All you do is take some deep breaths, allow your eyes to move over the painting. You welcome your source of the divine. Welcome your source for higher intelligence and wisdom. Simply meditate on the piece and let your eyes fall where it may. Then you get thoughtful about what that particular moment in the piece, what that spot, what those images, what those figures, what they really mean to you. Become contemplative about the larger meanings that you may be pulling out. And lastly, what action are you inspired to take? Taking deep breaths the whole time. And I want to thank you, Dom and Melissa, and thank you to Siba. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for being present and making time to invest in yourselves and connect with an artist's powerful work. If you are interested in learning more about the Hines Center, go to www.hinescenter.org. We have plenty of events and workshops and experiences. We're operating virtually right now to maintain the health and safety of all of our community. However, there are ways for us to connect online. And Dom, we just want to say thank you to you guys for collaborating with us and continuing to be in relationship and conversation about what we can be doing together. And we're excited. And we're going to do this one more time, right? We're going to do it next month?
Of course, yeah. We're going to keep this. Now, I love this platform, and I think that it's needed for a lot of people who, I think the art space kind of allowed this, hyper intellectual narrative to be told, but when it's in meditation and people self-reflect, self-reflect while meditating, while observing art, they become more open to it and see the genuine pursuit of it all. And I think this is a great platform for people to get closer to art and not just, use it as a thing that's, something to party around, but art is serious. You see it when you look at it in the scope of what this platform is allowing. I love it.
Yes, and I do too. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next month. Please be sure to follow the social media platforms. Hines Center on Facebook is the Hines Center for Spirituality. On Instagram, it's at Hines Center. Dom, will you share your social media handles for anybody who's listening?
Our social media handles is Houston Mac on Instagram. You can find that on Instagram. It's also Facebook, and also our YouTube channel is also Houston Mac. If you guys want to see our virtual programming, most of it is going to be through Zoom and IG Live. So we got a lot of good stuff coming. We're still creating virtual material, although the museums are opening up now, but we still, want you guys to be safe and still want you to have the option to stay home. So just keep looking at us virtually. We got a lot of good stuff coming up, so y'all just stay tuned with us. I appreciate everybody who tuned in. So thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, guys. All right, well, we will see y'all next month. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you, Melissa, and thanks, Dom. Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Andrea. Bye-bye.